Most people think hot sauce is just about pain. More heat, more suffering, more Scoville units. But the world's most famous hot sauces were never created to hurt people. They were created for survival, for preservation, for trade, for humidity, for weak meat, for long voyages across oceans, and some of them became so powerful that entire cultures built identities around spice tolerance. One sauce was carried by soldiers. One accidentally became internet fuel. And one level feels less like food and more like chemical warfare. By the end of this video, you'll understand how hot sauce evolved from mild flavor enhancement into something that can physically shut your body down. Sriracha is where modern spice obsession usually begins. Sweet, garlicky, smooth, approachable. For many people, this is the first hot sauce that feels exciting instead of dangerous. But the globally famous Rooster bottle isn't actually the original version. The sauce traces back to the coastal Thai town of Sriracha, where local chili sauces were used with seafood long before Western supermarkets discovered them. Then, in 1980, a Vietnamese refugee named David Tran arrived in Los Angeles and created his own version after struggling to find sauces that tasted like home. That version exploded globally, and what's interesting is that Sriracha became famous partly because it doesn't overpower food immediately. The heat builds slowly, which tricks people into thinking they can handle more spice than they actually can. And that false confidence leads directly into sauces built around deeper, smokier heat. Chipotle sauce starts with jalapenos, but then something important happens. They're smoked. Originally, this wasn't about taste, it was about preservation. Fresh peppers spoiled quickly in the Mexican heat, so people smoke-dried them to make them last longer during transport and storage. That process completely changes the flavor. Fresh jalapenos taste green and sharp. Chipotle tastes dark, earthy, almost barbecue-like. And smoke changes how humans perceive spice psychologically. Smoky heat feels slower, heavier, more deliberate. That's why Chipotle sauces often feel less aggressive than they really are. But this is where things get interesting. Some cultures didn't just preserve chilies, they fermented them, which creates heat that feels alive. Gochujang doesn't attack immediately. It waits. This Korean chili paste combines peppers with fermented soybeans, rice, and salt, creating something far more complex than standard hot sauce. Sweet first, savory second, heat last, and the fermentation process matters enormously. Traditional gochujang was aged for months, sometimes years, in large clay pots, exposed to changing outdoor temperatures. The flavor slowly deepened over time. That's why gochujang feels less like spicy sauce and more like an ingredient system. And unlike vinegar-heavy Western hot sauces, gochujang creates lingering heat that keeps expanding after every bite. But eventually, some regions pushed spice further, not through fermentation, through pure pepper intensity, which is where Caribbean heat enters the picture. Scotch bonnet peppers are confusing at first, because they taste fruity, almost tropical. Then suddenly your mouth feels like it's collapsing. The pepper gets its name from its resemblance to a Scottish tam o' shanter hat, but the sauce became iconic throughout the Caribbean, especially in Jamaica. And historically, extremely spicy food made practical sense in hot climates. Capsaicin triggers sweating. Sweating cools the body. Spice literally became climate adaptation. But Scotch bonnet sauce also reflects Caribbean history itself, African cooking traditions, colonial trade routes, local peppers, sugar plantations. Everything collided into one cuisine. And unlike milder sauces, Scotch bonnet heat doesn't stay local in your mouth. It spreads, lips, face, which is why experienced spice eaters often describe it as full-body heat. But some sauces stopped caring about balance entirely and started chasing pure intensity. Sambal isn't one sauce. It's hundreds of sauces. Indonesia alone has well over 200 regional variations. Some are smoky, some are acidic, some are brutally hot. And many families protect their sambal recipes almost like inheritance. What makes sambal different is texture. It's usually chunkier than standard hot sauce, less processed, more explosive. Garlic, shrimp paste, lime, shallots, fermented chilies, everything hits at once. And historically, sambal spread across Southeast Asia through trade networks connecting Indonesia, Malaysia, and coastal ports, used by merchants for centuries. But here's the thing. Modern chili growers eventually started importing super-hot peppers from entirely different continents, meaning traditional sambals suddenly became far more dangerous than they were originally designed to be. And eventually, the internet discovered that extreme pain gets views, which changed hot sauce culture forever. Ghost pepper sauce marked a turning point, because this wasn't just food anymore, it was challenge content. The ghost pepper, also called bhut jolokia, comes from northeast India and held the Guinness World Record as the hottest pepper on Earth from 2007 to 2010, before being surpassed by hotter varieties. For generations, local communities used it carefully in cooking. Some even used crushed ghost peppers to deter wild elephants from entering villages. That's how aggressive the heat is. But social media transformed ghost peppers into spectacle. Suddenly, people weren't eating spice for flavor. They were filming reactions, sweating, crying, shaking, and chemically, ghost peppers hit differently because their capsaicin concentration is so extreme that your body can interpret it as actual danger. Heart rate increases, adrenaline spikes, your brain starts panicking. But even ghost pepper sauces eventually became normal to hardcore chili communities, which led sauce makers into an entirely different category of heat, one that barely feels edible. Carolina Reaper sauce feels almost unnatural. The pepper was bred by Ed Curry in South Carolina after over a decade of crossbreeding, originally driven by research into the health benefits of capsaicin, wrinkled skin, tail-like tip, capsaicin levels reaching over 2 million Scoville units. At that point, your body stops processing the experience like normal flavor. It becomes survival response. People hiccup uncontrollably. Some lose the ability to speak clearly. Others experience something called capsaicin cramps, where stomach muscles physically spasm from the intensity. And weirdly, the sauce still has flavor underneath all the violence. Sweetness, fruitiness, smoke. Most people just never reach that part because the heat arrives first. And this is what happened to hot sauce culture over time. It started as preservation, then flavor, then identity, then competition, until eventually humans started engineering peppers specifically to see how much pain other humans would voluntarily consume. Worth noting, the Carolina Reaper itself was surpassed in 2023 by Pepper X, also bred by Ed Curry, which averages 2.69 million Scoville units. The ceiling keeps rising.